This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman.
This is George Newbern, the voice of Superman.
And you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam.
Streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everyone, to our special Black Friday bonus episode, a now yearly tradition here at the DCAU Review. I am Liam, and with me, as he always is Cal. Cal, we have a sort of a fun one today. It's sort of a piggyback on what we did last Black Friday, which is rather than look to the past and go pure nostalgia on some of our old favorite action figures, specifically related to the DCAU or comics and superheroes in general, or even video games. I think we talked about one year. This year and last, we kind of had the idea of like, let's look into the future. Let's look into our crystal ball and make some requests of the great toy manufacturers, because as it happens, there's still quite a few DCAU figures being made even to this day by some of these high quality collectible companies. So this year we're talking about the Mondo / Funko owned figures who do these really intricate and well done Batman the Animated Series figures already. But before we get into our pitches on what other DCAU characters, I would appreciate it, Cal, if you, for the layman, which I include myself in, if you could just go into a little bit more in depth on these Mondo figures and kind of the history of them and kind of what the vibe is when you're talking about this versus like a McFarlane DC Direct type figure.
Well, first I'll say happy Black Friday to you. To always love this tradition.
Absolutely.
It's funny, we talk every year, we're like, all right, we're going to give ourselves the week off of Thanksgiving and Christmas, but we always record a bonus episode anyway. So it's really, we're just, in theory, if we had more time on our hands, we could record this, months in advance, but we don't. So, we're still giving back. It is the season of giving. So we enjoy giving to our listeners and you and I talk enough nerdy stuff. This is like niche nerd stuff. So there's like surface level nerd stuff that like everybody knows. There's like a little bit deeper. I think DCAU content and a podcast about the DCAU is like a little bit deeper than the surface level, because you're going just beyond the general Batman the Animated Series talk. And then this is like Inception. We're on the third level of nerddom here, where we're talking about collectibles based on DCAU properties. So always fun to do that because you and I both enjoy that. But yeah, as you mentioned, so for those not familiar, Liam and I decided this year we're gonna give Santa McFarlane the year off, and instead we're writing to the lovely elves over at Mondo, the creative team there. So a little bit about Mondo. Folks might be more familiar with their prints that they did. They worked with the Phantom City creative crew and put out these really incredible series of Batman the Animated Series prints. They released some vinyl records that also included some of Shirley Walker and the other composers' soundtracks, and paired them with some of the prints that they did for individual episodes. You're probably more familiar with those if you're just kind of like a surface level Batman the Animated Series fan. So Mondo is the company distributing them. They do all kinds of prints and collectibles in this sort of space. So really, really, to this day, they're still doing incredible prints and incredible stuff that comes out as partnering with various different artists to distribute those. So that's one portion of what they did. I think my guess is, I don't have a 100% factual backup for this, but my guess is after seeing the success of that, DC approached them, or maybe they approached DC and said, hey, let's figure out what else we can do with this property. And the one thing that nobody was doing at that time was this 1/6 scale action figure line. I think some of Hot Toys is like the brand that most people are probably familiar with. They create those really incredible, hyper realistic looking action figures. It looks like a miniature dumbed down version of a live action human being in like a 12-inch tall scale. But the 1/6 scale figures for Batman the Animated Series had never really been touched. So back in 2015, Mondo announced that they were going to do one of these. They eventually, I believe in late 2015, early 2016, they released this Batman the Animated Series Batman figure, and he came up with what they call multiple portraits, but are really, the layman would say multiple swappable heads and hands and all these accessories. And the really unique thing about the Batman was that he came with all of these very deep cut accessories from different episodes. He's got the tape from Dr. Marsh in the On Leather Wings episode, the audio tape of the bat, the bat sound effects that Bruce Wayne tapes. He's got the thermos that contains Alfred's chicken soup that he uses against Mr. Freeze. And then, of course, he's got all kinds of bat gadgets that come with him and different hands that you can swap out. He's got the thumbs up hand from the end of Be a Clown that you can kind of make him, give him the classic Batman gif of a thumbs up there. So, yeah, it was really unique. It was really interesting, and it was really well received. So I think the creators right away had plans for their next figure. Then they come out with Mr. Freeze, and that's received really well. And then Catwoman comes out, and I would say within the last 3 to 4 years, they've really ramped things up. During that time, Mondo was actually purchased by Funko, as we talked about. Funko, obviously well known for their Funko Pops. Everybody in the world knows what a Funko Pop is, even if you don't collect them or don't like them, but they are everywhere. They're ubiquitous. So Funko at some point purchased Mondo. I think it was in 2021, 2020 or so. There was concern about whether or not that meant the death of this sort of smaller projects. And so far, I think if anything, we've seen more projects come out of it, because we went from these sort of one a year figures in Batman the Animated Series to now there's 2, 3, 4 a year. They've expanded beyond. They put out a Joker, a Phantasm, Harley Quinn, Man Bat. Upcoming, they have a Bane figure that's due to release. Some people already have it in their hands, but pretty soon it's coming out, though, and hitting shelves. Then we have Poison Ivy and Scarecrow and Clayface are all due in 2025. So they really ramped things up here. And then what really kicked things off and made this exciting for us to talk about, Liam, is they've put out these really incredible figures, and as we said, the quality is really strong and they look great on a shelf. And they're honestly the sculptors that they've hired that have put out the last, I would say, 5, 6 figures. It's, to me, I've called these the best Batman the Animated Series figures that have ever existed. They are just incredibly well sculpted. They look like they took a 2D object and made it 3D, and it's sitting there on your shelf and you can pose it. And I mean, there are, of course, minor flaws that you could probably pick at, that people do pick at and complain about, as is the case with everything. But they are, to me, they are the most true to life versions of these 2D characters that we grew up loving. And then they aren't satisfied, though. Once they've sort of nailed down this Batman the Animated Series corner, they announced over the summer at San Diego Comic-Con, something that they had actually mentioned way back when they got this original license, was that they were interested in eventually doing a Batman Beyond figure. Sure enough, came to fruition. And then I bullied you into getting one for yourself, your first Mondo on order. I convinced you that it was worth it for the discount alone. And as we talked about, some of the deep cuts that are included with, as far as the alternate heads and the accessories. I mean, the Batman Beyond.
The egg baby.
Right. It comes with an egg baby. How could you not want a Batman Beyond figure with an egg baby? Now, these are not exactly cheap. Right. They are certainly a high quality collectible, and they are not for the faint of heart. So if you're used to paying $20, $25, maybe less than that, $10 for an action figure, this is like the premium quality, and you're paying for it with the premium price that comes with it. So most of these are between $150 and $230 as far as US American dollars. So with that out of the way, once this door is open with Batman Beyond, you and I sat down and we're thinking, what are we going to do for Black Friday this year? And we said, you know what? They've opened the doors here for additional DCAU 1/6 collectibles. If we're doing Batman Beyond, that's just a piece of the timeline. It's not a far fetch to do a hop, skip, and a jump across the DCAU here and create even more incredible best versions of some of these characters that we'd like to see. So you and I sat down, we came up with a list, we kind of traded lists. We had our fantasy draft of which characters that we wanted to come up with. And so today we're going to talk about which characters we selected, and I think maybe even the most fun, like sitting back and just being like, man, they should make a, whoever. That's fine. That's fun in and of itself, thinking about that. But where we really are going to get into the nerdy is to come up with the deep cut accessories that come with these figures, and what would really make them pop and make the true fan kind of just gush over these and want to have these in their own collection. So I'm excited to do that with you today, now that we've gotten the backstory of the Mondo Batman the Animated Series and now DCAU figures.
Yeah, absolutely. I would think just to if I could say it more succinctly on my end, like you said, as a more novice collector who is just dipping my toes in, these are, I think, maybe the purest distillation of, like you said, taking the 2D image from the show and making it into a 3D action figure. I don't think anyone's ever done it better than Mondo, especially the Beyond. I don't think there's ever been a Beyond figure that really has completely nailed the look from the show. And I get it, because that is such a simple design, so it's probably hard to capture it exactly. But Mondo nailed it in a way I think nobody ever has. So with that in mind, Cal, we have 8 altogether. So we have 3 each that we picked out ourselves, and then we have a couple that will kind of be our bookends, our kind of no-duh heavy hitters that we thought we could kind of collab on together. So with that in mind, let's start off. We'll kind of, like I said, use them as bookends. So starting off with our first collab pick, feels like a no-brainer, a Justice League / Justice League Unlimited Wonder Woman.
Yeah, this one, I mean, we've talked about it before, I think, online discourse, whether you're on Twitter X or Instagram. The conjecture is that the Wonder Woman character herself at some point should have her own animated series. She's certainly an interesting character enough to warrant that. But our JLU, whether they continue the DCAU at some point and have Susan Eisenberg come back as Wonder Woman, or if it's a completely different take on Wonder Woman, I guess that's yet to be seen. But regardless, the JLU Wonder Woman will always be tops, I dare say, for us. So as the strongest female character and a female lead and a part of the DC Trinity, how could you continue a line of DC animated heroes without having Wonder Woman there? I mean, you're going to have Batman there. You could pair Wonder Bat together. She's going to look great on a shelf, even if you're just introducing her as a single character to get people to onboard the line. That's something else that you're looking at, is how do you attract new collectors? Well, there's plenty of Wonder Woman fans, plenty of people that would be interested in a Wonder Woman figure. So go after that target market and get yourself a Diana Prince, will you? So I think this one is pretty easy to slot into our line here. As far as different heads, and I think would be there's a little less interesting options, I dare say, with Wonder Woman, just because she kind of looks the same in almost every episode. Now, I will say, so the Batman the Animated Series line, they will do unmasked heads to put with your characters, whether or not they appeared that way in the series or not. Mr. Freeze comes with a unmasked, like de-goggled head, which in the free suit we didn't technically see ever in the show, but it's nice if you want to pair it with, there's a Nora Freeze headstone that comes with one of the versions. So, he's there in the snow, as we see in the Batman Holiday Special or something. But so with that said, we have I think we pictured like an angry head. So one where she's kind of just like real upset. Maybe she's angry at Hawk Girl. Maybe she's angry at one of her arch nemesis in the show, somebody from Themyscira here to do battle with Aresia or something. I don't know. But an angry face is a good pose, and something that'll pair well with some of the accessories that we give her. I think a head without a tiara is also probably a good call, because we do see her without the tiara at times. A smiling one is always a good portrait also. She doesn't smile a lot in the show, but there are times that she does smile, especially when she's standing next to Batman, it seems. And then maybe a Justice Lord one. That one could be interesting. Again, Mondo sometimes just throws an extra head in there for value, or just as a one-off. It may not always pair with, obviously, Justice Lord Wonder Woman didn't wear the same suit that Wonder Woman wears, but hey, somebody might find value in that, and a short-haired Wonder Woman head slot on there, somebody would find a reason to include that. But again, I think the real meat on the bone here is going to be the accessories, though, which a little bit difficult with Wonder Woman, but I feel like you pulled some really interesting ones out.
Yeah, so on the list, some obvious ones, like I think you do 2 lassos. You do one that's kind of rolled up that you can somehow hook on her waist. Then you have the unrolled ones. You can literally tie it in knots, pose it with her holding it like she's throwing it. I think that those are slam dunks. I think you put on like little rubber bullet effects that you can kind of wrap around the bracelets, like she's blocking the bullets. I think that's another no-brainer for a Wonder Woman figure like this. And then getting into the fun ones, the more episode-specific ones, I had the idea of that giant like key artifact thing that she uses to open the gate to Hades in Paradise Lost. I think like the whole part 1 of that episode, she's building the key and then she opens it and Hades comes out at the end there. So I thought like that's an easy one. I had just a sword, again, not always she doesn't use it that often in the series. I think she uses it specifically in Star-Crossed, and then more recently in the Justice League versus Fatal 5 movie, she has it again. But it's like, yeah,
good accessory. It's a good accessory that fits with Wonder Woman, whether you're trying to recreate a specific scene or you just want to pose her with a cool weapon.
Exactly. And then, some of the other ones I had were from, if we get into the JLU side, you have, for the Man Who Has Everything, I have the rose, the Krypton rose that she gives Superman, as well as the big laser thermal dampener, I believe is the name, or something like that she shoots Mongol with, that blasts right as she's about to say a swear. I thought that would be a fun one. And then to wrap it out, I also put in there the diamond, the Eclipso diamond from the aptly titled Eclipsed. So I feel like one of the more memorable parts of that is I think it's the end of that part 1, is her walking towards the camera holding it, and I think she might even look into the camera and she's humming the song. So I thought the Eclipso diamond, we could put that with all the Leaguers who are in that episode technically, but I think it works. But I think it's most memorable, like it has that weird like horror movie setup to her walking towards the camera, humming the song and holding the diamond. So I would put it with Wonder Woman there.
Yeah, I like that one a lot. I think the only other thing that we had included on that list there was the loose tiara to go with her. If you want to photograph a scene, and that's the action figure photography that people do with these is just absolutely incredible. If you are ever bored, or if you ever want to see what grown-ups do with the toys that they spend money on, is there is a significant portion of the people that invest in these that actually take photographs and pose these and take really incredible pictures of these characters, either remaking things that were seen in live animation or creating new scenes altogether. So that's certainly something that you could see being posed there, either her holding the diamond there, or her walking up to the tiara and the lasso of truth there to pick it up while not wearing the tiara. So yeah, very cool. I like that one a lot.
Absolutely. So now we'll save our other big heavy hitter collab for the end here, but let's move into our individual picks that we had. I let you go first in our little draft and immediately regretted it. And we'll get to that pick. I don't know if you want to start with that one or not, but you have three picks. We'll kind of go back and forth here. So go ahead and hit me with your first pick for your individual choices here.
Yeah, I'll go with my number one pick. Absolutely. It was a no-brainer for me, and that was someone who has been vastly underrepresented in action figure form for far too long, and that is Dakota's own Static. That's right, Virgil Hawkins, Static himself. I'm just picturing this like he would be in scale with everybody, be a little shorter, be a little smaller than everybody else, so he would stand out there. I think I would have him. I think you have to have him in the later season, the black shirt. I just think that gold logo pops off of his chest a little bit more. It's a little bit more interesting to look at with the way the colors sort of match with each other.
Yeah. To your point, that's kind of when he meets all these other characters. If you're posing him next to Batman and Batman Beyond and Justice League potentially, he meets all of them in season 3. I mean, he meets Batman earlier, but all the rest kind of come in season 3 and 4 there. So
that's a very, very valid point. The other thing we didn't mention was that all of these figures have cell shading attached to them. So they give you that cell shading that makes them sort of look like 2D animation made in 3D, which a lot of people might be familiar with that from the McFarlane Batman the Animated Series line that's been released. They do cell shading on those figures to various degrees of success. I would say most people dislike them. But I think that Mondo just really knocks their cell shading out of the park, and not overdoing it, but also really making it look like a unique feature to the figures. And you can even see that they do an X-Men the Animated Series line too, that every time I see one of those figures, we talk about it before, we're not X-Men the Animated Series fans, but every time I see one, I'm like, man, I want that figure so bad.
they do the Spider-Man ones too. I just saw Symbiote Spider-Man the other week that I was real itchy about.
That one, the Venom figure with the blue and the red cell shading. Oh, maybe one of the best action figures ever made. Oh man. Anyway, back to Static here. So Static, easily a lot of fun I think that you could have with the different portraits. You got to give him at least 4 heads. I think like a shocked, scared face is always a good some sort of emotion that you got to give him, other than like your standard like stern regular face. So a shocked face, a scared face is probably a good one, pun intended with shocked. I think a really fun one would be the goggles down, even though, or is it broggles? I forget what the official name of them is, but I think Dwayne McDuffie said they looked like a bra, so that's he always disliked them. But yeah, the goggles being down didn't happen too often in the show for whatever reason. I think maybe because they looked a little goofy, but it did happen from time to time. It would be not, cool enough to have an alternate head there to put the goggles down to give them that classic look. And then I think a Virgil head, an unmasked head, would be neat. I don't know too many times that he wore the suit without the mask, but hey, I'm sure there's probably a scene that it happened in, and if not, doesn't matter. An alternate head there would work. Smiling head.
I think in the Justice League episode, they're when they're like on the Watchtower alone eating pizza, and both he and Richie had their helmets off.
Good point. Yep. Good call. All right. Well, there you go. And that's a memorable episode enough to warrant that. So, and then the last one, there's no happier hero, I dare say. Well, maybe there is, but I'd say he's probably the happiest of all of our heroes. So a smiling face for Static would be a must as well, because he's just full of joy. So as far as accessories for him, I think these are pretty cut and dry. You got to give him the static saucer, give him the full static saucer, so that he can fly. Maybe put something under it to allow it to appear to levitate in some form or fashion. And then you give him a compacted, folded up static saucer before he brings it out completely. You got to give him the shock box so he can talk to Richie. I'd say some Zap caps are in store also, since those were used pretty often. And then when it comes to the actual sort of episode specific, I was racking my brain for some really interesting things that come up with, and I really came up with the Plant Man comic, which I thought was memorable from our point of view because it was a talking point on our episode, on one of our episodes. And then I think the map that's used in Static in Africa, there's a map that they use to find the artifacts, or that the artifacts that the scientist is looking for. So he has a specific map that is attempted to be stolen by our villain in the episode. So that would be fun. And then, of course, you got to have some electrical effects, some things that make it look like he's shooting electricity out of his hands. Maybe the ball of lightning bit that he does. The Goku sort of like ball of lightning bit that he fires up, something along those lines that'll really make those the electrical effects stick out on Static himself. As far as that's concerned, anything pop into your mind as far as another accessory or two that you could include?
The only only thing I was thinking, and I don't know if this is really what the kind of thing Mondo does, is there a way we make the coat soft goods and we can pull it off and have the sleeveless look that he does a few times?
They could do swappable arms, I think.
Okay.
I think or you could do like a swappable torso, probably, because they do that. They did that to
that's like the pre-order bonus,
right? Exactly.
Sleeveless static torso.
I like that. Yeah, that's good. Or you could do swappable torso any season 1 Static, for your limited run there. So either one, you might be able to do 50-50 there with an exclusive there, and they charge an extra $30 for the season 1 torso. But yeah, that's it was a lot of fun, and I'm just like picturing this in my head, and I'm gonna be so sad if they don't ever make one of these. Every one of these I think that we're gonna discuss today, I'm gonna be so sad if they don't ever make them in hand. It just got me all jonesing for a Static vinyl figure.
Absolutely. And speaking of Phil Lamar voice characters, I'll move on to my number 1 draft pick here, which is, of course, the great and glorious Green Lantern himself, John Stewart. My head's just, my brain started firing as soon as, again, once you stole Static from me, I went, no, John is a fine number 1 pick here. But yes, getting into the heads. Again, since this is one of the few characters I would say on our list here who had a dramatically different look between JL and JLU. So my thought was you kind of split the head portraits between those two series. So you have your regular head, you have maybe a Justice League head, but the eyes are black, kind of depowered, like in Blackest Night or some of those episodes where his ring runs out of juice. I want to give him like the real beat up, jacked up face from the end of Star-Crossed when Pro Tau
that's really good,
beats the tar out of him, and his like his lips all fat and busted, and his eyes all swollen and all that. I thought that would be a fun one.
Awesome.
And then I have a couple JLU ones there. Of course, the bald head with the goatee. You guys do a standard face with that, and then maybe you give him one with the eyes like fully painted green, whites and pupils painted green there, just to give him like the real powered up look there with the JLU look. So I thought that was an easy one. I did actually have all of these come with a million different hands, fists and open hands and gripping hands to hold the accessories. I thought one specific one, again, you'll see a theme across this John here, is you do one hand where the ring has been cut off, like in Star-Crossed. His fingers are kind of a little mangled.
Good.
So that's my only special hand request there. And then getting into the accessories for him, this is where I think I maybe had the most fun of any of the ones on my list here. I think you should give him the Easy Company helmet from Savage Time.
Oh, so good.
I love that. I did include the little green axe that he uses to fight Ro in Star-Crossed, just to give that like some continuity across the three the 3 other accessories that I already mentioned. I think you give him the ammo belts and the alien guns from Hearts and Minds when his ring isn't working. Yeah. And so he puts on like the gun belt, and he has the cool alien laser blasters that he's using to try to fight Despero's guys. That would be a fun one. And then maybe my favorite that I thought of here is you give him the snowman with the green top hat and other green I think he makes the whole thing out of his ring basically. So
Yeah, yeah,
I think you just give him that the green there, and then maybe you give him a couple other little constructs or effects to like a rubber, like just bolt of energy coming out of the ring, or
yeah.
give him a hammer, or that's the thing. And that was we've talked about on the show over and over. John didn't use nearly as many constructs as I think
Yep.
people would have liked him to, which
Yep.
makes sense for the character because he's this more serious military man. But there's less. I couldn't think of a ton of constructs, but then I was like, oh, snowman.
That is a good one. Yeah, I think the big glaring hole here is you got to give him the actual lantern too.
Oh my gosh, yes.
He's got to have a lantern. Although it didn't, again, one of those things that didn't make as many appearances as you would think that it would in the show. They didn't do the whole like him powering up and saying the in brightest day and blackest night too many times in the show. It wasn't overdone. I'll say that. But still, got to have the lantern. Got to give him a battery
For sure.
his ring,
Absolutely. Right? Yes. All right. So let's move on to your number 2.
That's right. Yeah. So number 2 on my list. Speaking of Justice Leaguers, if you're gonna have John Stewart, you got to have his buddy cop friend, of course, with him. That is, of course, the Flash.
Yes.
So another, I think, easy sell here. He pops. He's got that bright red suit. He's a character that multiple people love, despite the 2023 movie's attempt to kill the character. I think he's still fairly popular and recognizable. So the JLU Flash, or the JL Flash, obviously has a near and dear place in our hearts and many people's hearts as well. So again, you're going to give him a couple of heads here. You can give him the unmasked Wally West hat face, which whether you're recreating the Lex Luthor in the bathroom scene, I'm not going to wash my hands because I'm evil, and then he takes his mask off and says, "I have no idea who this is." So you can recreate that scene, or in Starcrossed when they're unmasking and Batman has already guessed what his true identity is. So plenty of options for an unmasked Wally head there. You got to give him what I dubbed the intense running face. So, he's gritting his teeth, he's bearing down as he's running. If you're gonna pose him running, you're gonna want to have something that communicates that in his emotions. Give him a couple of electrical elements. Also, maybe the ears are kind of have the built-in thing to make them look like he's running or stretching out or something like that. Do something special there. I think he's also another happy character, so you got to give him a smiling face on top of it. And then the fun one that I had was also from the aforementioned Comfort and Joy. I think you got to give him a head with a Santa beard and a Santa hat so that he can make special deliveries to all the children at the orphanage. So that one would be a lot of fun to have. Plus, you could break it out at Christmas time, and it would be an acceptable Christmas decoration, I dare say. But as far as accessories are concerned here, these I had a lot of fun with. There's a lot, believe it or not, I was going into it, I was like, man, there's not going to be a lot of accessories for the Flash. I don't know what you give him. And then I was like, wait a minute, he might have the most accessories out of all the guys that I come up with here. So you got to give him a light speed energy bar from when he was hawking energy bars.
Get a big burst of flavor in every bite.
That's right. You got to give him one of those. You can literally just give him a hand that could hold it, and him holding it up like he does in the commercial of the show.
Love that.
I think you also give him, speaking of Comfort and Joy, you got to give him DJ Rubber Ducky, don't you? Maybe it's not articulated and doesn't make the fart noises and dance, but you could at least stand it next to him. That would be a lot of fun. I think, again, you give him the Santa hat, you give him the DJ Rubber Ducky. That's a Christmas decoration right there. That's acceptable to put up in the middle of your living room every Christmas at that point. So, I also had I really was proud of this one. I really enjoyed it. The Bob and Terry's ice cream pint from the Hearts and Minds episode. So if you recall, they're exploring John Stewart's apartment, Kilowog and Flash are, and they find old tape. I went back and forth. I was like, does he have the old Yeller tape, or is it the Bob and Terry's ice cream? I think the Bob and Terry's ice cream is a little bit funnier. So he finds Bob and Terry's ice cream in the freezer, which Kilowog proceeds to eat. So that's a fun one. And then I think you got to give him a headband from the Brave and Bold episode
Mm-hmm.
that Sullivar makes, of course, to protect his brain from being taken over by Gorilla Grodd. And then give him the going way back, give him the armband from the Superman the Animated Series episode for racing and speed demons. And then last but not least, how about give him the golden laurel wreath, the little Greek little head wreath that he gets awarded at the end of Paradise Lost, right before being told that Wonder Woman is banished from Themyscira. So again, these are really fun little accessories, little deep cuts, if you know type stuff that the fans that are purchasing these are going to appreciate. So I thought those were some pretty good ones.
Yeah, I don't think I have many to add. The maybe like if we're really getting the pre-order bonus is like you give him the Lightspeed energy bar cardboard stand-up from Flash and Substance or
Good.
the JLU episode that Orion cuts in half.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Or something like that. But yeah, it's hard. That's just putting a hat on a hat. I think you pretty much nailed it on your accessories. I think coming into that, I don't think I would have thought of Flash as being one that had like the most fun episode specific things you could put with him. But yeah, he's getting up to some antics.
Yeah.
Some weird antics compared to some of the other leaguers. Some non superhero activities there. So that's a lot of fun, and that will move me on to my number 2. Decided to go a little off the beaten path, but I was like, this guy's probably the defining non-original 7 character from the Justice League Unlimited series. So I went ahead and picked Green Arrow to go along with our set here. As far as when we get into the extra heads, figured you give him just one without the hat. You give him an unmasked head, maybe a smiling head. He's kind of a smarmy, maybe more of a smirk than a smile. But and you give him kind of the beat up like hair kind of shagging down into his face, beat up face that he probably see it a couple of times. My thought was Initiation, but also when Wildcat's wailing on him in
I was going to
Cat
say
Canary.
Wildcat gives him a pretty big shiner for my recollection too.
Yeah, so I think those are my spots for my head, and then accessory. It kind of does just become mostly bows and arrow based stuff.
Yeah, but it's tons of fun, right? He's what I think in the toy industry they call somebody toyetic, because you look at it and you're like, oh, that's so cool.
Absolutely, and most of these are episode specific ones, to be fair. But obviously, you give him the bow and the he has the backpack, which you could probably take a few actual regular old arrows out of, and then you have the specialty arrows. You got to give him the boxing glove. That's when we first see him in Initiation. That's like the first thing he does is hit the gangbanger in the supermarket with one of those. I gave him you give him a net arrow that that he uses a couple of times as well. The buzzsaw arrow that he cuts himself out of the ice in, I believe that's To Another Shore. Killer Frost freezes him, and then he uses that to do that. I also thought maybe we give him some kind of piece of rope to do the thing where he slides down on his bow and sings his own theme song, also from that episode. So I think that's a fun one at least that's fun to imagine in figure photography.
Sure.
And then I have one where speaking of the Cat and Canary, when it appears Black Canary is going to be the one to try to fight Wildcat and knock some sense into him, he pulls out the little knockout gas arrow.
That's right.
So I feel like you give him, maybe that's being held in a hand, and you put like some kind of little puff of yellow gas effect on it. I think that would be neat. And then my last one was the carbon rod from I think you do 2 here. You do the full carbon rod from Initiation that he tries to shoot into the big fire guy chest hole. And when that doesn't work, you also give him the arrow with the piece of the carbon rod wrapped around it.
There you go.
The Sayah dirt bag, like that's got to go. That's got to be included as well. So that's my pitch for a Green Arrow one. Does anything stand out to you specifically that you'd include there?
Nah, I think I mean this is one of these guys. Anytime he's ever made in action figure form, I think again, not to take away from the excitement of the Arrow character, but half the fun is usually the accessories that come with it.
Absolutely.
I think personally, if just for my own sake and for hopefully alluding to and opening the door down the line, maybe giving them a motorcycle helmet head so that
Yes.
if we ever get enough figures to recreate the double date episode, then we would potentially open the door for a question figure down the line. But yeah, I think that's nitpicking. Otherwise, I think you nailed it there. There's not too much else that I could imagine putting in there.
Absolutely, Cal. And so for our third final final individual choices, we thought, look, we're talking we could pick other superheroes. We could do that till we're blue in the face, but we need some bad guys mixed
Oh
in
yeah.
with this line. Obviously, the B as you mentioned, a lot of the B tests villains have been made, so you need a couple of Superman, Wonder Woman, Justice League, whatever. We need some bad guys for them to be matched up against as well. So hit me with your pick for your first Mondo villain figure.
Yeah, I think when we initially talked about this, we batted around the eye of doing a batted around the idea of doing a just Superman the animated series line for Mondo, and then we just like we did with our podcast, we're like, heck, let's just make it the whole DCAU at this point. But my brain had initially kind of set on that. All right, well, what figures would we do from a Superman the animated series line? And I think my brain just kind of got stuck on doing Superman the animated series villains. And so I was back and forth between Parasite and Metallo, and I could not come up with enough interesting accessories. I think a TV remote is probably the most interesting thing, and maybe a rat. Right. So
give him the kryptonite that he grabs. You could do it, but it wouldn't be first draft. I think
correct. Yeah,
that's like pretty deep in the line.
Correct. Yeah, you'd have to really get down there to do some stuff. So I went with Metallo. And even with Metallo, I was like, man, is there enough interesting things here that I could put together an interesting Metallo figure? And I think ultimately I came up with some interesting accessories, but we're scraping the bottom of the barrel here when we get to the end of this. But as far as Metallo looks wise, he had many more different looks. I wish there was a way, and again, maybe this would be like an exclusive timed edition, which they do, a more expensive version that has a less of a run. The turtleneck version of Metallo would be swappable from Superman's pal, would be like a swappable
the
torso.
Midlife Crisis edition.
That's right. But yeah, as far as the actual figure goes, I think you got to give him the cyborg head from Action Figures, even though the rest of his body isn't going to match. It's going to look cool enough on an action figure that and it's a unique enough look that you got to go with it. I think if you give him also the Intergang mask that he wears right before his reveal at the beginning of Heavy Metal, which I learned today is on Bruce Timm's list of worst episodes of the DCAU, and was immediately angered. I could not believe that Bruce Timm said that Heavy Metal. I love Heavy Metal. It's a great episode. But anyway, right at the beginning of that episode, before he's revealed to be Metallo, he's wearing this hood mask that all the Intergang members are wearing. So I thought that was pretty interesting. I think the screaming head that he is sort of actually frozen with at the end of the chaos at Earth's core, where his mind is wiped by a mysterious individual as he's about to spill the beans to the Justice League about what's going on. And then I think just a plain John Corbin head with don't give him the ripped face, just give him a classic John Corbin looking head. I think that would be interesting enough to add some value as well. And then as far as accessories are concerned, I had to go all the way to Justice League Unlimited and then back to Superman the Animated Series to kind of include some stuff. Thankfully, he had appearances all over the place here. So we have the first one that came to mind is the ritual knife from the beginning of the episode Hereafter, where he and the other hooded villains are all wearing their oath, and they all jam knives into the Superman logo at the beginning. Again, it's more of a if you know, you know bit. Otherwise, it's just like, why does the cyborg man have a knife? I think another slam dunk would be a piece of kryptonite. He's got to have a loose piece of kryptonite, whether it's falling out of his chest or one of the Justice Leaguers ripping it out of his chest, or the many times that he is separated from his piece of kryptonite. I think giving him a set of sunglasses and a hat, a fedora from when he wears that as his disguise in action figures, I think would be unique look. Obviously, you could put it on the cyborg head, or if you just wanted to make John Corbin look cool, you put it on John Corbin's head. But a hat and sunglasses will look cool. I think you give him the vial of the Orozco's virus from the Way of All Flesh, which of course is revealed to be the thing that Lex Luthor had the doctors put in his food to make his transformation essentially into Metallo mandatory as he was dying from this unique bit of cancer that he had. And then I think I was back and forth here between either the coloring page or the little tiny Superman action figure that was made out of popsicle sticks and stuffing that the kids made in action figures. Bobby and Sarita in that episode. There's a coloring page that Lois discovers that leads her to realize that, or I think it's Lois. She sees it and it leads her to discover that Metallo is there. Maybe Superman finds it later at the end. I can't remember who finds it. But then there's also they make their own action figure out of stuffing and popsicle sticks, and it's one of the first things that triggers Metallo's memory after he's discovered on this volcanic island. And then the last thing I had was it was kind of a Hail Mary at the end here. I was like, oh yeah, that would be really cool. He ends up with Steel's hammer in Heavy Metal for a bit, and ultimately it's his undoing as the hammer is hurled into his chest that destroys the kryptonite heart. But I think him holding the hammer would be a great piece to have too. It would look neat, make him look more menacing than maybe just a dude with a green kryptonite heart. But that's what I had. That's me racking my brain for various different things that could go on a Metallo figure. I don't know if there's anything that popped into your brain that I missed or that you think would look cool with that figure or not.
No, I think you covered all the big ones there. I think that's a pretty good job. I did go to, could we get, again, I keep thinking of like pre-order different torsos, like like a skinless torso. You probably couldn't get a whole body.
Right.
But something that just matches the that head a little bit better.
Probably
head. Or something like that. I think that would be a neat additional piece.
Maybe some effects for the kryptonite too, when he's able to project the kryptonite. So something that makes it blasting the kryptonite, or you could even do a head that looks like he's got the kryptonite eye blast thing that he eventually gets. What I beat around those ideas also, but didn't settle on any of them for my final pick.
Yeah. I think you pretty much nailed it. I think, anything I can add there is a little bit extra there. But moving on to my villain pick, and I was a little bit like we talked about this very briefly off air. Like I thought about Lex, but I was almost like paralyzed by choice on Lex. I feel like because it's like, do you do the robot suit? Do you like? I would want him in the suit, but is that going to sell? Is a bald guy in a suit gonna sell?
I think you could. I think the argument could be made because this is such a niche and these are so limited. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but typically these figures are 1,000 to 1,500 to I think I've seen some that have been as high as 3,000, but in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to collectibles and it comes to toys, those are not very high numbers. Those are True. Generally in the toy industry. That also adds, I think, to the price point for it is they tend to be somewhat limited in their release. So you could, for the diehards who are buying these, I think you could do a guy in a suit if you really wanted to. But I know something else caught your attention and you decided instead to go that route, which I think is also easily acceptable.
Absolutely. So I went back into the Justice League JLU pond, and I came out with Grodd, which I thought would just be a lot of fun. Giant gorilla.
Absolutely.
Like, on a baseline, it's just cool. So I like that. For our extra heads, I think you give him one where he's wearing the mind control helmet. That's a no-brainer. The other one is the brain dead kind of drooling head from the end of Brave and the Bold Part 2, where he's been defeated. I think that's a good one. I had the idea of one where you kind of try to, I don't know if you put any sort of like rubber pieces or if it's just you just paint the eyes yellow, but something that kind of intimates him using the psychic powers from the later episodes. And then also, just give him an angry face too.
Heck yeah.
That's for the banana face. And
There you go.
so I think that those are kind of slam dunks there. And then for my accessories, again, a few fun items. One is just all the gorillas have that like golden black pistol that they use.
Oh yeah.
And I think Grodd even uses it briefly at the start of Brayton the Bull Part 1, where the archaeologists are looking and they see him like speed out of the city all of a sudden. I think he's firing one of those. So I was like, yeah, you can include that with him. I think you give him a banana to hold and the tire swing from the end of that episode when he's to go along with the brain dead head.
Good one.
If you want to paint him, I thought the hazmat container with Clayface inside of it from Secret Society, I thought would be a fun one to throw in there. And then to get into the JLU side, I also thought you could give him the little Brainiac rock that he tempts Luthor with, as well as the spear that he makes Luthor and Dr. Polaris steal from him from Black Hawk Island in I Am Legion. I thought you give him a couple of those little things as well to round it out a little bit.
No, those are great selections. I don't know of anything else unless you wanted to do like a loose helmet or whatever, if that wasn't included there or something. But I mean, how are you going to beat the drooling face and the tire swing with the banana? I mean, that's
the whole reason to do the figure, I think, is for that look. But yeah, I thought about something like you could give him like a little one of the other like test monkeys from Brave and the Bold or something, or I think he holds up the picture at one point. What Giganta looked like before she was Giganta.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah,
so you could give him that, or like that Tala ends up trapped in, but I think Lex is the one who traps her in there, so that wouldn't really work. So yeah, I think I'll stick with what I've got there for my villainous picks here.
Yeah, those are all solid. I think at that point you have enough there to really drain people's wallets, but as we know, Mondo doesn't seem to be satisfied with that. So as you mentioned, we have a bookend as far as our heavy hitters go. So we've laid out these really interesting ones, and I think the most glaring, and probably if I had to place a wager, the most likely person to get a Mondo figure when all is said and done here with this DC license has to be the Man of Steel, Liam, and he's maybe the heaviest of heavy hitters here to bookend our mutual kind of collaboration on figure and accessories.
Absolutely. So we'll trade off. I'll take the heads, and I'll let you get into the accessories here. Yeah, I think this is another one where I think you can kind of do a hybrid figure, because obviously he appears in Superman and in Justice League, and the look doesn't change too much. There's some minor changes, but you can get around that with a couple of different head portraits there. So I think you give him, obviously the main head is the Superman the Animated Series head, and then you give him another one of those where maybe the eyes are red, or you give him something to indicate the heat vision. I think that's a no-brainer. Maybe another head where he's an angry or a yelling head with the eyes cut. He's always getting electrocuted or something on that show. So you give him one sort of eyes closed shouting face. I think
screaming Tim Daly whining in pain sound effect not included.
Absolutely. And then I think we got into some fun ones with the Justice League options for your heads. I think you give him the season 1 cheekbones look with the more defined look, and then you give him the season 2 and JLU regular with no added cheekbones. Maybe that's like a smiling face just to make it a little bit more different than the regular
sure
Superman animated series heads. And then this was your brainchild, and I give you full credit. It was, you got to give him the bearded and long hair face from Hereafter, which is just brilliant, honestly.
Yeah, you could, in theory, with this. The rest of the suit wouldn't match, but you could get creative with your own arts and crafts if you wanted to. But you could, as a pre-order bonus or as a timed run, do like the tunic as a tunic and sword as as added accessories, or honestly a piece of cloth. You could get creative and get a piece of cloth and make your own tunic at that point and match it with the bearded head. But I felt like that opened up. So, I mean, Superman with a beard is cool enough, but obviously that appearance in that episode and so much about that episode is so memorable. So yeah.
Absolutely, and then let's move on to the accessories here. And what does our Man of Steel come with?
Yeah, this is another one where right off the bat, these just kept we were talking about it, and these just came out like, what about this? What about this? What about this? Something that I wouldn't necessarily think of at the start, that Superman, who doesn't use weapons, who doesn't use gadgets, what is he going to come with? But then you think about all of the little things that happened in the various different episodes and the deep cuts that you can include, and you start to really run out of space in the packaging at some point. So I think we agreed on one of the big seminal things throughout Superman's appearances is the Brainiac orb, the golden orb, the Krypton orb that he has in is it Stolen Memories? I think is the first episode with that in it, and then obviously it becomes a important part of the Fortress of Solitude. You could even do like a little pike that comes with it that you put the orb in or something like that. And then you can't have the orb without the Krypton box that goes with it in order for Superman to access his Ask Brainiac system there to answer anything. So you got to give him that. One that's completely slipped my mind, but is a slam dunk that you brought up. The Phantom Zone projector has to be a part of it. He's got to be able to trap Jax or Mala in the Phantom Zone at some point if you need be. So Phantom Zone, and that design that they did, the Phantom Zone projector, is just so fun.
Absolutely.
So you got to make that in 3D form. Unfortunately, he didn't get too many, he didn't get a callback except for maybe turtleneck version of Metallo. But unfortunately, the Superman's POW episode is technically canon in the DCAU. So I think it would be fun to give him Jimmy's watch that he awards Jimmy in that episode, of course. And then we have, I think from Apocalypse Now, Orion gives him that disc at the beginning of the episode to sort of contact him if Darkseid should, or if he should need help with Darkseid in the future. So that would be cool. And then I think giving him the armband again. You have Flash. He's got his armband for Speed Demons. You give Superman his armband, his tracking armband for Speed Demons. Give him that. And then another fun one that you had. Give him a hand with a holding the tracer that Batman places on his cape in World's Finest. That would be a really great one. I can see the figure photography now of him. You know, in the foreground, his hand holding the little bat tracer, and him right behind it looking at it. I think that would be a really neat addition as well. But
so yeah, you could do some fun thing with like forced perspective, where you put the Batman, like you see the back of the Batman figure looking down at Superman holding the tracer in his hand or something like that. Yeah, you could do some fun stuff with that.
Yeah. But we collaborated on that one. I'm sure our listeners, if you're listening to this, you might have ideas too. What would be some fun accessories to include with any of our ideas here? You know, feel free to tweet at us or send us a message on Instagram, or comment right on the episode. If you're listening on Spotify, you can do that and give us your thoughts on some things, some opportunities that we missed that would be fun little deep cuts to add in with our action figure selections here.
Absolutely, Cal. Very. I think that's probably hopefully going to be the most fun part, is hearing what other people have as far as the idea, especially for the episode specific accessories. But hey, or tell us, make your own figure pitch from scratch if you have another character that you want that you think needs to be immortalized in Mondo ASAP. Let us know as well. So sounds like a lot of fun, and I guess that'll be into what? Hang on. But I believe that's the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive signal. And
I think it's just the bonus point sound that we've repurposed.
Yeah. For today, it's the San Diego Comic-Con exclusive signal. And that is because we decided as a fun surprise, a little bonus here, kind of right live on the air. We're gonna bounce off each other. If we did a San Diego Comic Con exclusive Mondo, and we made it a dark side big fig, as they're called, what does that look like to us, Cal?
Man, that's interesting. Yeah, Mondo does have this. There is precedence for this. Mondo did do this with the Man-Bat figure that kind of dropped out of nowhere, was a Comic-Con exclusive. They did release a regular version of it, but the gigantic exclusive version had like 2 sets of wings and all this. It's a gigantic action figure. Like, it is humongous. So if you're gonna do a larger than life figure like that, I think you got to go for an exclusive. So Darkseid is the logical choice, I think, for that. Right off the bat, let's start with heads. You got to have just the standard stern face, like the no reaction. You got to give him, I think it's smiling, but he's also got the glowing eyes, like the fiery eyes, like right at the end of the Tools of the Trade episode where he's first introduced to Mannheim. I think that's a slam dunk and an easy one there. So he's like, it's like the devil smiling. Look from that episode. Maybe go ahead.
My thought for head, you give him the Omega Beam explodey head, the Ben Grimm face from the end of Legacy, where Superman forces the beams back into his eyes and his head blows up.
Yep, that's easily an easy one there to do also. And man, I guess you could do his head. His head is different enough, I guess, at the end of Justice League Unlimited in the Kiss costume. But I don't know if you would want to do that figure as its own at some point. So maybe because it's such a big figure, he only comes with another, like, I don't know, grimacing face, or disappointed in his son face.
I like that. Generally displeased face.
I hate Calabac face.
I love that. That's great. And then I think we gotta look at accessories. I think some obvious ones. You can give him a mother box. I thought you give him the gun that he uses in it's Twilight Part 1, where Superman like pulls open the force field and then he blasts Brainiac with the gun.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was that's one you could include as far as like a wacky little accessory.
Yeah, accessories are definitely a little bit more difficult, I'd say.
I do have another pitch if you're
sure.
You give him the like coat of arms Superman shield flag that he gives to him to take for the invasion in Legacy Part 1.
Heck yeah. Yep, that's a good one. That's a no-brainer also. I'm wondering if you just give him I think a throne is going to cost too much money, so maybe not. I'm trying to somewhat stay real.
Did like a no articulation, like completely covered in robe Desaad little guy with him.
Yeah, that could work. Yeah, a non-articulated little guy. Yeah, I think
my last one that I had on my list was you give him 1 or 2 babies from the Highfather baby exchange.
Good.
Flashback.
Yep, that's good. And then I think to top things off, you got to give him Omega Beam effects to shoot out of his eyes.
Oh yeah,
his eyes with real Dan Turpin killing action. All right. Would it be too much to give him Dan Turpin's headstone too?
Ooh,
obviously,
man.
He's not in the scene with him, but he's directly responsible. So
I think that would be great.
Man, I both made myself I'm impressed with myself and also disappointed in myself with that one.
I mean, we could retroactively put that with Superman instead if it fits better. But I do kind of want a Dan Turpin gravestone.
Give Superman an alternate cape with where it's flying in the wind.
Mm-hmm.
You can recreate that scene, and then I think just a couple different Omega beams. Maybe if you want to give Darkseid, even though he's not the person that's obviously responsible, but give him a couple of the weapons that Mannheim gets
Okay.
trade. You could give him, the gloves or the little magnetic horseshoe looking staff thing or something. But yeah, as far as he's gonna be priced at what he is because of the size. So it's gonna be just basically the figure, a couple of accessories, and the heads, and maybe the Omega beams. So that's I think that's more than acceptable that his accessories aren't as prevalent based on the size of the figure.
Yeah, I think that's a great one to end on there. So, yeah, as mentioned, we definitely want to hear your pitches for, especially for that last one, because again, we literally did that live on the air. We had no notes for that one. So, if there's something obvious that you're like yelling at your phone or computer right now, because there's such an obvious one, please let us know. And your pitches for any accessories or figures that you'd love to see in this Mondo line. As Cal said, it's a little bit more niche within the niche of what we're already doing on a show like this, but we couldn't help the wheels from turning. Like we said, we always try to do something kind of toy based or something in that family when we do these Black Friday bonuses. So as we begin to wrap everything up, just want to thank everybody for listening, whether you do so on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and head to youtube.com/thepodtower right now and subscribe. And you don't only get content from us, but you also get it from our friends at the Watchtower database, as well as our live stream archives and plenty of other stuff there as well.
That's right, Liam. And not only that, but we invite our listeners to support us by following us on their favorite social media apps, whether that is Twitter X or Instagram or whatever the other ones are, any of those other ones. Facebook, we will say those are the two primary ones that we use, but we do have accounts on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. So you can interact with us on there, but the likelihood of getting a fast response is less likely than if you use the other two. So, but totally understand if neither of those or none of these or any of these are not your cup of tea. So totally understand it. Your life is probably better for not. But if you do want to join the conversation, please contact us there on our social medias. And then, of course, you can check out the show notes if you want to support the podcast directly. So just a little housekeeping item. Spotify has announced they are doing away with their monthly subscriptions and supporters, so we will be losing access to that. We do thank our monthly supporters. We are currently exploring other options to continue that, to give people the opportunity if they do want to support us. So we will give you some updates once we settle on something, hopefully for 2025. But if you wish to contribute to us for the month of December, you can certainly check out the show notes, or you can pick up a piece of merchandise. It is Black Friday, after all, if you're listening to this on the drop, which means there are sales happening everywhere. Check out our merch store. I am certain there is a sale that's happening now through the end of Cyber Monday, so be sure to get yourself a shirt or a mug or a sticker or something and support the podcast that way if you'd like.
Absolutely, Cal. And another way you can interact, by the way, is as mentioned, Spotify does still allow you to leave comments on our episodes, and I've actually started uploading some of our reels that we've already put on YouTube and Instagram there. So Spotify seems to be expanding what you can do on that app. So another way you can interact with us, we always have a poll question there. So a lot of different ways to get in touch with us and support us that way, and we appreciate you. However you're doing it, as we head into this holiday season, we know it's not always the happiest time of year, even though there's a lot of pressure put on everyone to be happy during this time of year. So whatever you're doing today, whether you're back at work, whether you're taking the rest of the week off, we appreciate you spending part of your holiday season and your day after Thanksgiving with us. We always have a lot of fun doing these, and we'll be back next week with another regular episode. But until then, I'm Liam.
I'm Cal.
And we'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye, everyone.